Under my leadership, we're going to take other countries' jobs. Did you ever hear that expression before?
Donald Trump recently dropped a bombshell on Keir Starmer after he made one of the most foolish moves you'd ever expect from a prime minister. And now you might be wondering, was it really that bad for me to use such harsh words? Was it a criticism? A challenge to Trump's policies? Or maybe he took a stand against Trump's tax plans? Nope, it wasn't any of the usual things you'd expect. This was a misstep of epic proportions.
We're going to talk about some of the problems that Starmer will incur because of Donald Trump being the president. Donald Trump has already apparently been heard in deep conversation with his big mate Elon Musk, the richest man in the world, saying, I'm worried about Keir Starmer. He's very, very left-wing.
I'm talking about the decision to send 100 MPs to support a specific party when his duty was to remain neutral as the US election unfolded.
Guess what he's done now? He's sanctioned sending 100 Labour volunteers to the key swing states in America.
And we all know Trump doesn't forget even the smallest slight against him, making this interference particularly nerve-wracking. That's why, after coming to power, he immediately imposed a 20% tariff on UK goods. So, if you're a business owner or farmer, prepare to shell out a hefty sum in extra taxes.
There was at least 100 sort of Labour apparatchiks who seem to have organised this trip out to the US to campaign. They're saying that they paid their own way, that this isn't anything organised under the banner of the Labour Party.
And believe me, it all started from the moment when Labour decided it was a good idea to wade into the 2024 US election. And of course, guess who they chose to back? Kamala Harris. Sending a bit of support to a foreign candidate isn't exactly breaking news, but when it's your own political party deciding to send 100 volunteers of current and former governments all the way across the Atlantic to rally behind the sitting US Vice President, that's a whole different level of involvement.
Mr. Speaker, can I begin by congratulating President-elect Trump on his historic election victory. As the closest of allies, the UK and US will continue to work together to protect our shared values of freedom and democracy.
Poor Keir Starmer, the genius behind the UK's spectacular dive into this delightful mess. Honestly, who could have possibly seen this coming? I mean, who needs those boring things like careful negotiation? Do you have any thoughts for the future when you've got Starmer's unparalleled brilliance leading the charge? While the rest of us are stuck playing checkers, Starmer's over here playing 4D chess, making all the right moves. He's clearly got the entire political game figured out, right? Just look at how well it's all turning out.
Trump is not only a woman-hating, neo-Nazi sympathizing sociopath, he is also a profound threat to the international order.
To add to this, Keir Starmer made very bold statements against Donald Trump, like he's a women-hating, neo-Nazi sociopath and is a profound threat to the international border. Well, that is a very brave statement, Keir, but do you know who you're talking about?
Let's talk about Donald Trump and indeed Keir Starmer. He's cropping up a lot tonight, isn't he? This guy, Keir Starmer, our Prime Minister, never puts a foot right.
This whole situation escalated because you've got Trump, who's already looking for any excuse to clash with Starmer, and then there's the Labour Party making moves in a high-stakes US election. So, what does this all mean? Well, the early signs of tension between Trump and Starmer were just the beginning. The accusation of election interference was like the spark that lit the fire, and now the flames of discord are burning bright. Trump's anger at the Labour Party's involvement in US politics could have long-lasting effects and seriously hurt the UK's relationship with the US.
To me, the most beautiful word in the dictionary is tariff, and it's my favorite word. It needs a public relations firm to help it, but to me it's the most beautiful word in the dictionary.
Now, if we're going to keep the heat going, let's talk about the bombshell Trump dropped shortly after his victory. Remember that 20% tariff threat? Yeah, Trump wasn't messing around when it came to the UK. Following Labour's public support for Kamala Harris during the US election, Trump had a little something to say about it. The man wasn't afraid to bring out the big guns, and this time it was tariffs. Specifically, Trump threatened a 20% tariff on UK goods, and that could have been a game changer.
Several American companies are planning to shift their production out of China after President-elect Donald Trump's victory. Throughout his campaign, the Republican threatened to impose 60 to 100% tariffs on goods imported from China.
A tariff of that size isn't just a slap on the wrist, it's a full-on economic power move, and Trump was using it as a way to punish the UK for what he saw as interference in US politics. This was a classic Trump move. If you step on his toes, you better believe he'll come back swinging.
I sat listening to the numbers thinking this budget is illiterate. I don't know who's doing the sums, whether perhaps it's the Right Honourable Member for Hackney North, but the sums do not work.
Now, the implications of this tariff were huge. Imagine the economic chaos that would follow. Experts said this could cost the UK a staggering $22 billion. That's no small change. It's enough to cause serious damage to UK industries, from manufacturing to agriculture. With a 20% tariff, UK exports would become a lot more expensive to American buyers, and that's a big thing. British manufacturers could lose contracts, agricultural exports would take a hit, and the entire trade relationship between the two countries would face serious disruption.
Well, we're going to avoid some tariffs. You know, that Donald Trump could turn around and put up again sometime later.
The UK relies heavily on exports, and a tariff like that could put countless jobs on the line. The 20% tariff threat is just one example of this strategy at play. This is Trump's way of showing he can use economic power to bring allies back into line. And this isn't just about punishing the UK for its political stance. It's about making a point that no one is safe from his economic warfare. The UK isn't the only country that's been on the receiving end of Trump's tariffs.
We have tremendous economic power. And by the way, if we're not careful, we're not going to have that for long either. That's going to go down the tubes with everything else. But if China or some other country is behaving badly, we have things called tariffs that are so severe.
Trump doesn't just use tariffs as economic tools, he treats them like his personal power play. Seriously, the guy slapped tariffs on allies like Canada and Mexico without batting an eye, as if he was grounding his kids for sneaking out. In Trump's world, tariffs aren't about balancing trade, they're about making sure everyone knows who's in charge. Even the former UK ambassador, Lord Darroch, chimed in, saying when Trump drops a tariff threat, he's not joking. This isn't about crunching numbers, it's him flexing and reminding the world who's got the power.
To me, the most beautiful word in the dictionary is tariff.
Other countries are definitely watching closely, because if Trump's willing to pull this move on one of America's closest allies, who's to say he won't go after the next? Global trade alliances are definitely on shaky ground, and Trump, yeah, he's fine with keeping them that way, if it means making his point. Now, let's get into the numbers, because this isn't just some petty political spat. The UK and the US have a $300 billion annual trade and relationship, and Trump's tariff threat is putting all that at serious risk. That's not a small change, it's massive.
Of course, officials will be considering lots of different scenarios, but the position of the government is that we support free trade and we support the trading relationship between the United States and the United Kingdom. It's a very strong, very fruitful relationship, both for us, but also for the American economy, and of course we want to protect that and strengthen it in the years ahead.
But this tariff tax on the UK isn't just pocket change, it's the biggest ally of the UK. America is the UK's largest single trading partner. No big deal, just the backbone of the UK's economy. Forget that America is the UK's largest trading partner. Who needs that when you've got fish and chips, right? A few tariffs? No problem. It's not like those billions in trade are important for jobs, growth, or keeping things running smoothly.
If you're in private business, or if you're a pensioner, as far as Labour's concerned, you just go and do one, right? They have decided that those people won't vote for them, and they're going for those living on benefits. They're going for those working in the public sector.
If tariffs hit hard, we're talking about industries getting slapped with prohibitive costs, the kind of costs that make exports impossible. The whole situation is evidence that when Trump drops a bombshell, he doesn't hold back. And right now, Starmer and the UK are finding out just how far he's willing to go to make his point.
To me, the most beautiful word in the dictionary is tariff. And it's my favorite word. It needs a public relations firm to help it, but to me it's the most beautiful word in the dictionary.
The global fallout of Trump's tariff tantrum, because it's not just the UK that'll be feeling the heat. If Trump rolls out a sweeping 20% tariff, the ripple effects won't stop at the English Channel. According to the CITP, a blanket 20% tariff could actually shave a good 7% off the global economy. We're talking about the combined economies of France and Germany. All that growth, right down the drain, courtesy of the tariff-loving Trump. So, can Starmer recover from this diplomatic blunder? It's a question that hangs over him like a dark cloud. We've already seen how Trump's reaction to the UK's political involvement in the US election was swift and unforgiving. The implications of this diplomatic crisis are far-reaching. The strain between the UK and the US could reverberate across the globe, with other countries watching closely to see how the UK handles this showdown. Countries that rely on the UK's relationship with the US for economic or military support might begin to question whether the UK can be trusted to maintain strong international ties. The US might start looking elsewhere for alliances, and that could leave the UK more vulnerable than ever. Ultimately, this situation will only escalate unless Starmer can find a way to navigate this mess. The question remains, will Starmer's strategy backfire, or can he salvage UK-US relations despite the bombshell Trump has dropped? Only time will tell, but one thing's for sure. The stakes couldn't be higher for Starmer and the UK. The way this plays out could change the future of the UK's global standing and its ability to navigate the political and economic currents that will shape the next decade.